Hello to everyone and hope you've all been well. It's been a while since I was seeing you, and yeah, it's been a while since I made my last proper full video which talks about one Channa species in specifically for a while. Okay, so today in this video I'm going to be looking at Channa Bleheri, which is the rainbow snakehead. I think it's definitely one of the most popular of the dwarf snakeheads. It's definitely one of the most sought after. Coloration is beautiful. It's called rainbow snakehead for a reason. So when you get them in under the right conditions and the right environment, they can display just a very very wide range of very very nice colors. Okay, so over the past few weeks, I've picked up about what is it? I picked up 10 of these of various different sizes and various different ages. So I'm looking at creating a breeding group. So I've got the three large adults, which are the three fully grown Blahiri that I've bought over the past few weeks. I've got them in a large 50-gallon tank, which I think is going to serve as their main breeding tank. I've constructed this tank to be basically like a jungle. I've put a lot of hornwort, a lot of Elodia, a lot of Amazon frog bit into the tank, and there's just loads of plantation and vegetation, as well as a lot of hiding spaces. I've actually bought these coconuts, which have been hollowed out specifically for aquarium use, and I'm using those as hiding spaces. Created loads of nooks and crannies for them to escape into. Thing about keeping Channa, any Channa species in a group is that you're going to have to deal with some level of fighting. It's just inevitable. So if you are going to keep them in a group, you're going to have to make sure that there are places where they can retreat to, these hiding spaces where they can retreat to, where they can feel safe and secure. One thing that's always been mentioned as being very important for China is the presence of floating plants, whether you're using frogbit or something else like that. I'm personally a fan of Amazon frogbit. I just love the way that it looks. But any China tank should really have floating plants on the top. It just makes them feel more secure. I think it mimics far more closely their natural environment, and it prevents a lot of the jumping that they do. And China is still Channa Bleheri or any other Channa, they're going to jump and try and jump out of the tank no matter what you do. But I think floating plants seems to reduce the likelihood that they're jumping all day long. Okay, very very important. If you have Channa Bleheri or any other Channa, you're going to need a very very tight fitting lid, and don't just think that the lid that you buy from the shop, that standard lid is going to be enough. You're going to need to look at that lid, and you're going to need to see if there are any holes or spaces in there which you need to cover up. For instance, the lid that I bought had holes for the piping and for the airline tubing, and I had to go and seal those up and make sure that they were smaller. The lid that I bought also had these panels which would come off, and I had to make sure that they were heavy enough that the China could not jump through. For filtration, I use a pretty basic setup. Typically for my channel, I'm actually a big fan of using sponge filters. I think they just work very, very well. They're economical and they don't create too much flow. It's very, very important for China that you don't create too much water flow, because they do like to hang in the water a lot. They like to rest there, and if your flow is just too crazy, they're not able to rest, and I think it just stresses them out and it just makes it more uncomfortable for them. For this particular tank, I'm using one of these fluidized moving bed filters. Actually, my first time trying it. I'm just seeing what they're like. But so far, the results seem to be pretty good. The water is keeping clean. The water parameters are all pretty good. So yeah, maybe I'll use some of these fluidized moving bed filters in the future again. Another thing that's very, very important is the water temperature that you keep these fish at. Now, I live in a tropical country, a Southeast Asian country. Um, Water temperatures here usually are around 26 to 28, which is too hot for these fish. So you have to actually follow a cycle, which means that the summer months you can probably go from about 22 centigrade to about 26 centigrade, And in the winter months, you have to drop the temperature down to around 18 centigrade or maybe just below that as well. They can actually take temperatures quite low. They are not tropical fish. Okay, if you keep them at temperatures, consistent temperatures which are too high for too long, let's say for a period of a few months, they always seem to develop these kind of bacterial diseases. So that temperature drop in the winter is very, very important for overall health. People may, if you live in a hot country, you can achieve this temperature drop by using air conditioning in your room. You can try using a chiller. I personally put all my Channa, which require this kind of subtropical cooler temperature. I personally put them all in an aircon room during the winter months, and I keep on blasting the aircon 24/7, which brings the temperature down to about 17 or 18. It can even reach that low at night, which is adequate. Do not keep them at consistent high temperatures. For you guys who are living in maybe more temperate climates, say in Europe, I would say probably just leave them in an unheated tank and just let them go with whatever temperature your room temperature is during the season that you have. If your room during the winter is heated and it's still at quite a high temperature, I would probably try and find a way to cool that down. I know that some people put them outside in garages and sheds like that during the winter to get that drop in temperature. For feeding, my preference is actually always to try and get them on some form of pellets. I actually generally use these Hikari pellets, ones which are developed for cichlids, or there's another type which is specifically designed for carnivores, which are sinking. So I use both the floating and the sinking pellets. At the moment for the fish, I have these three big guys. The adult ones, they will not take pellets in any form whatsoever. So at the moment, I'm feeding them earthworms and other types of insects and other sorts of either live food or bloodworms, which they will accept. So I'm still working on that, on trying to get these adults to accept some form of prepared food. I just think that prepared food is one, it's healthier, there are a lot more nutrition elements inside them, and two, it's just easier for me because I have to take care of quite a few different tanks and quite a few fish, and feeding live food is actually quite a time consuming process. For the small ones that I have, say the juveniles, they actually are readily eating a type of prepared food called Hikari Vibra Bites. They have no problem eating that. They're on bloodworms, they're on frozen brine shrimp, on all sorts of food. The juveniles are actually far easier to feed than the adults are at this point. But I'll keep on working on the adults and see if I can get them to take pellets in the future. So I have three adults in this larger tank, and I have about six juveniles. So my hope is as the juveniles grow, they'll be able to join some of these adults in the larger tank and hopefully form a larger kind of breeding colony as such. Or perhaps later on down the line, maybe I'll actually set up another large tank for the current juveniles, and maybe I'll try and keep two breeding kind of type of colonies going on at the same time. Let's just see what happens. Yeah, so hopefully as the smaller ones get larger, I will be able to match them with these adults which are in this current larger tank. That'll be my hope. I'm trying to arrange it like some kind of like a football team with the first team and the reserve team and the juvenile squad. So let's see what happens in the future. The basics for breeding Channa Bleheri are basically the same as any other Channa. I think the best way to start off is to get a group of males and females, say about, I think the recommended size is around 5 to 6. Let them pair off with each other, and usually they will kill the rest of the other. Once that pair is formed, they will kill the rest of the fish in the tank. If you're lucky, you may be able to get to those fish and rescue them before they're killed by the pair. But yeah, generally, it doesn't end well for the other fish in the tank. To distinguish males and females, I think for me there are a few different ways, but for me the easiest way is to look at the shape of the head. The males have this kind of much more rounded, kind of wedge shape to their heads, whereas the females have a kind of more pointed, more arrow shaped features to their heads. So you've got to look from above and look at the head. This kind of blunt head is usually a female, whereas the sharper sharper, more pointy head is usually females. And there are other ways as well. There are some ways to tell from the coloration, but I think the easiest way is to look at the head. I'll be making further videos about this group of Beheri as time goes on. Let's see, we'll check in and see how the juveniles are doing, how the adults are doing, whether there's any pairing or maybe even any possible breeding. So yeah, hoping for some good action with these Beheri. Okay, guys, I'll be making further videos on some other channel in the near future. Please do hit the like button or click subscribe if you want to see those in the future. Thanks, guys, and stay safe.